appreciate all of you guys being here. There's a lot of new faces here, so something I haven't done in over a year, basically, just kind of introductions. So, my name is Ernest Andrade. I'm the director of Charleston Digital Recorder, and Kristen, who runs our operations side, basically, is a face you're probably more familiar with. Today we have Zach Hambrick. I've known Zach from his days at Boomtown. He's served in different digital marketing capacities with companies around town before starting his own operation, Hopefully, I guess, co-founding Hopefully. He's been with Massage Book, which is a company in Mount Pleasant, think new, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And then Boomtown. So we've got a great presentation about ahead on digital marketing, which is ever changing and suddenly an interesting and very timely topic. One of the things I'd like to do is just very quickly just name and company, and if you know the company, that's fine. Just as an individual, and really 2 seconds of what you want to get out of this today. So kind of Zach can kind of calibrate his presentation.
Well, thanks for showing up, everybody. So what we're going to get into today is, it's really easy for, see, I already broke it. Yeah. So first a little bit about myself. So co-founder of Hook Lead. We're going into our third year right now, but I've been doing marketing for a really long time, mostly all digital. I was a graphic designer before that. Before that, I was a mortgage broker, so I've had a few lives already. I'm not from Charleston, but I've been here over 10 years, so been here for a little while. I grew up in Charlotte, moved here from Atlanta, so really just southeast. Have 2 kids, a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, so that's always fun and challenging. And just living a dream, no complaints. We live in beautiful Charleston, so nothing to complain about there. So what I'm going to get into today is, it's really easy to kind of jump in and be like, oh, what's the next digital marketing thing that I want to do? Facebook ads, Google AdWords, content, all this stuff, right? But it's easy to jump in and just learn new tactic. But oftentimes people forget, kind of like the most important thing is, who you're marketing to, what makes them tick, and how to leverage that data for the different tactics and channels that you do. So instead of just kind of everybody said cast a wide net, and I talked to her about segmentation and different things like that. So we're going to get into some of that stuff today. So without kind of starting with who you're marketing to first, then things tend to be generic. You might have a list of 5,000 contacts, right? And I've seen people that will just send the same email out to all 5,000. Not that it's necessarily bad, it's probably better to send an email than not send an email, but all those people are likely not exactly the same. There's probably some differences in between them. They might have joined the list different ways, they might have different interests, different challenges, different things like that. So instead of kind of being more generic, it's being more specific. I already talked about kind of not jumping into tactics without starting here first. And then campaigns lacking the detailed targeting, so same thing. We'll kind of get into that, and not leveraging the research. So a lot of companies already have data about their clients and their target market, especially if most businesses, before they get going, what's the first thing they do? They figure out kind of where the gaps are in the market, what their solutions do for people, and so they're sitting on that information. It's just a lot of times they don't really apply that to their marketing. They'll just jump right into doing stuff. So first is creating your target audience. So, or I should say target audiences, because a lot of the times you have more than one. So like I said, a lot of people, a lot of businesses are sitting on a lot of data and they're just not using it, and it's kind of a shame. And that's where you get that generic marketing from. So the good way to kind of do this is to create buyer personas. So what they are, there's different names. There's buyer personas, there's avatars, there's all these different buzzwords or whatever. But basically it's who your ideal client is, and there's likely multiple of them. There's different ones. They're going to have specific goals, challenges, pain points. Even if they're kind of doing the same solution for you, they might kind of need it for different reasons. So really it's just going into who's your ideal customer, where do they spend time, and really what are their challenges, because ultimately that's what marketing is the first step into the sales process. Marketing is not only finding the people that are a good fit for what you do, but kind of helping them help themselves transition from discovering you all the way into buying and into the sales process. So to create a buyer persona, you want to have a lot of information, and it might seem like, oh, well, I'm going to do all this stuff, and then what am I going to do with it? We'll get into all that. So essentially you want your demographics, goals, challenges, pain points, common objections, frequently asked questions, which is really great, and then how to help. And you want to do this for each segment or each buyer persona. So for example, if you have, maybe you have like 3 different services or 3 different products, they might be a little different from one another, so that might be 3 different types of people that would buy each one of those. Everything making sense so far? Yes.
Do you have any type of tool which automates the building of buyer personas?
There's tools, HubSpot has one, but honestly I prefer just kind of doing it old school with creating a document, because all the online tools that I've found, they're not structured the way that I like them. I guess they're not all encompassing. They might have a good chunk of these points, but not everything, and then stuff for your business might be a little different than the template. So I usually just create it in a doc, and you can almost make your own template within a doc and replicate that. But yeah, I normally just kind of do it old school. So where do you get all this information? Like I said, a lot of the times you're already sitting on it. If not, there are tools out there to help you get some of this information. So client interviews, just talk to them. Or if you don't want to kind of interview them, you already kind of know them. Who's your best clients? Who's your favorite clients? Who do you want more of? Like there's companies that you probably work with, people that you probably work with that you're like, man, if I could just clone this person, that'd be great. Well, just kind of put together, who is that person? Are they male? Are they female? How old are they? What type of business do they have? Do they live in suburban areas or urban areas? When they came to me, what did I solve for them? What was like their pain points? What were their challenges? How did I help them? And just kind of start there. Company research, so kind of going into their company, figuring out the similarities of the different segments. And one tool to kind of help too, this is probably more for if you have more of a, I guess, target audience that is more geo-targeted or localized, because the Nielsen data oftentimes works by zip codes or areas, but I'll show you another slide that I can almost build a lot of the persona research for you. They're sitting on an insane amount of data. They've been around for a while. It's called Clarita's, or I don't know how to pronounce it right, but Clarita's My Best Segments. If you just Google that, it'll take you right to the tool. Google keyword research. We'll get into kind of how to apply that, but that's a good thing too, is figuring out what are they searching for, why are they searching for certain things, and where in the buying cycle are they when they're doing those searches. And Uber Suggest is just kind of another keyword research tool that is, it's really, if you do a Google search and you have your results at the bottom, it'll show related searches. That's where it pulls from. So a lot of the times you can figure out some of these crazy ways that people are typing in stuff, and it'll kind of spur your brain as to how your target audience is thinking, how they're searching. Yes?
Can I ask a question about the keyword thing?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a real dilemma in that a lot of people are finding me via employee engagement, but employee engagement is like becoming a really old-fashioned way to do things. There are other things out there like employee experience and stuff like that. But now I'm like at a dilemma. Do I still need to talk a lot about employee engagement because that's the way people find me?
Mm-hmm. What do you mean? Like that's a service that you're using to help people?
It's a key word, but I don't like to talk about employee engagement because it's old school now.
What would you say that if they're coming to you for help, what is it? How are they phrasing things, and what is it
they're using employee engagement?
Okay,
so it's like I guess my dilemma is it's like, I said years ago that I didn't want to pull people out of the tar pits anymore.
Yeah.
But I still pull people out of the tar pits.
Right. Yeah.
And those are the people, I guess I'm kind of thinking out loud. Those are the people with money because their business is in trouble and they're willing to spend it on an outsider.
Sounds like you kind of answered your
but
question.
it's a dilemma. How do you deal
I
with
would start doing, or like I like to say it, right, to start the training and this is common.
Yeah.
Use. use the keyword that they are used to.
Mhm.
That's why Apple called it a phone instead of a computer.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You could always bring them in with what they're used to, and then you can kind of change their thinking, through your processes. But I've seen it time and time again where people will say like, oh, well, I have this brand new product or this new idea. And when you kind of take a step back and slice it and dice it, it's a new concept maybe, but it still falls in the same bucket. It's like, well, I got this new software and nobody has this thing. It's like, well, it's still software, right? So there's a lot of similarities to other software. So you could start there, suck them in, and then, kind of take them down your process.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And this is a screenshot of the Nielsen data. So they give you a lot for free. It's also paid. If you're going to be doing a lot of this, it's actually worth it. The information they give you is pretty solid, but a lot of it is limited to zip code. So for example, if you put in like a Mount Pleasant zip code, you'd be surprised how accurate this stuff is too. Like they'll have all these different names and stuff of the different personas. You put in a zip code and the data that it spits out, you're like, oh man, yeah, that's spot on. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so once you build all this research, that's kind of what we're going to get into in this presentation is not just creating a buyer persona, but it's okay, now that you have these buyer personas, how do you apply them to Facebook ads, to SEO, to content marketing, to Google AdWords, to different things like that? How do you use it to convert people or to have multiple conversion paths? So like I said, you want to take all this information and apply it for the different tactics. So first off, it doesn't matter if you're doing content marketing or email marketing or an ad, you want to have the messaging straight. And you want to have the messaging tailored for that specific persona or that specific target audience. And so what I like to do is kind of think up different messaging for each persona and put it down on paper. And you'll kind of see what I'm saying. So different ways to kind of to resonate with people and to invoke a response is to push certain buttons based on the data that you've already done in your persona research. So your product, your service, to get people to take action and to kind of get them to envision their life being better with your product or service, it's certain different things that you want to press. Like, are they going to feel better? Are they going to feel smarter, by choosing you? Is it going to make their average day better? It's kind of that transformation, no matter what it is I'm transforming from having this problem, this challenge, to things being great. Just because they're using you, is it a status thing? There's a lot of big expensive brands that people just want to be a part of just because it's status. It's like, oh, well, I drive a Rolls Royce now. We'll get you to point A from point B. Just like a Kia, but it's the status of having that Rolls Royce. And then kind of the same thing is like if you know who your target audience is and you're doing your messaging for that specific channel, do you already have clients? Do you already have case studies, success stories for that specific persona? Because a lot of the times they call that, forget which book it was, but it's called an attractive character. So a lot of times when people are wanting to buy something, a lot of times they'll buy it because of the testimonial, because of the case study, because when they read those things, they might identify and say, oh, well, that's just like the situation I'm in. It sounds like they had the same challenge, the same problem that I'm having now. Looks like it worked out for them. So it's kind of that social proof that you can use, from your clients and put it into your marketing. And then, so one way to do this, I don't have a slide for it, so I'll just kind of talk you through it. But if you kind of say, like, you have persona 1, persona 2, persona 3, you could say, okay, well, if I want to try to hit some of these different bases, what's my hook going to be for persona 1? Am I making them feel better? Am I improving their average day? Different things like that. What's my messaging for persona 1? And you can do it kind of high level, but just to kind of have it categorized and have multiple ideas for each persona. So that way, when you kind of go through the exercise, you can take those ideas of like how to resonate, which buttons to press, and you can take the high level information and then start inserting it into your other campaigns.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
How many typically, like B2C, how many personas would you create normally?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't get overly crazy, but I wouldn't limit it to one either. I mean, maybe like 3 or 4, 2 to 3, something like that. You can have more, obviously. You can have less. It's really just going to depend on, your business and your audience. But I wouldn't really create like 20 or anything like that because it's just going to get a little hard to keep up with.
And then when you have one of these, do you kind of say, oh, the feel is the right, or the status is the right, or do you try to apply a little bit of each of these to each
If you
persona?
can do a little bit of each, because you can test, because you never know, like, as much as you feel like you understand your audience, the best way to really get actionable data is to try different things, test it, and then you can go back. It works especially well if you're doing advertising, because you can throw a little bit of money at it and get results a lot faster, and then you can say, okay, well, the messaging of status worked better, or man, when I put that social proof up there, like, people really responded. So I would try different ones. So you can kind of have like persona 1, have maybe like 4 different hooks that are kind of in some of these ranges, persona 2, and then I'll give you a starting point for testing.
Thank you.
And yeah, do it for each persona. It seems like a lot of work up front, but I'm telling you, it's kind of worth the exercise. It's worth to have that data, because even with some of our clients, we'll kick off new campaigns. We did persona research, 2 years ago, and I'm still pulling out those files and looking at it and saying, oh yeah, because you forget some of the little things that make a big difference in your campaign. So it's good to have it.
Do you offer any persona development services or workshops?
Mm-hmm.
Because I coached 25 businesses at one time, and a lot of them they're under 10 people, so they don't have a person dedicated that can do this.
Right.
Some of them are solopreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a market in helping them, because I always say to people, who are your peeps? Where do you find them? What do you say to them? This is about peeps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be great if, maybe a future either workshop or something where either the business owner can come in, or a designated person come in for a few hours, pay you, of course, and then walk out with some further development. Because this, I don't know, Pat, do you see, you're a solopreneur. You got 3 people on your staff, but how would you have time to go about doing this? Yeah, it's great stuff. I'm just thinking. I think a workshop or something would be awesome.
Right, well, just the discipline of doing it.
Yeah.
You may
Yeah, exactly.
allocate some time, but to have the discipline process would be powerful.
So maybe that's what it looks like. Like maybe you do a workshop, but then there's like work group times, because then people will do it, right? Because if if you're on Zoom and you show up at a certain time, like people will check in with you, do what they have to do, and then come back. So it would be good if you did offer something.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, I'd be happy to do something like that.
Yeah, let me know, because I write a column for the Charleston Regional Business Journal, and I'll put it in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
because this
Yeah,
is
let's,
needed. This is
exchange
needed.
information
Yeah,
so we can
cool.
set something like that up.
It's good stuff.
Awesome. So like I said, building this information is great, but a lot of the times it's kind of like how you said, it's like, well, I have it, or I don't know how to create it, but let's just say you did create it, and it's like, all right, well, how do I use it? A lot of people will get stuck there. It's like, well, I have this information. How's it really going to help me with my different channels? So I'm going to kind of go through high level on a few different channels on how to apply this stuff. Content marketing, there's kind of a blur between content and SEO, or really content and everything, because content is more than just blog. It kind of goes into your ads and everything too. But persona research can, just by completing this exercise, you can fill out probably 6 to 12 months worth of blog post content just from going through this. So from that point alone, it's a shortcut. So some of the things you want to do for your when you're doing your persona research and you're planning out your content strategy is content is a means for attracting the right people. You ask like, well, what do I write about? What keywords? That's kind of the information here. Is like what are they going to be searching for to find, like if they have a problem or a symptom, what are they going to be searching for to try to find the solution for it? And we'll kind of get into some of those steps as well. But what are things that oftentimes you're probably getting questions during the sales process? What are people asking before? What's the knowledge that they want? What are the questions that they're asking in order to make a purchase? Oftentimes you'll probably hear the same question over and over and over throughout the sales process, that's good information to have for your content, because like I said, if you can set up your marketing correctly, it just kind of blends right into sales, and it can help people kind of move themselves through the buyer's journey into doing the sale. Is there any kind of economic trends or anything like that people are talking about? Is there anything in the news that you can kind of latch onto and talk about that they might be searching for? Misconceptions. This is a good one because it's industry specific, but a lot of industries might have this stigma attached to them, to where people think, oh man, this type of business, like, well, I know they're just out to take my money, but it may or may not be the case. Sometimes they're really helpful, and so it's something you can kind of, and if you think about it during the sales process, a lot of the objections that you get, you can use for content, because if you can kind of break those walls down right up front through your marketing, through your content, then it just kind of breaks the walls down, and it makes it a lot more seamless to get into the sale. And then frequently asked questions. A lot of the times, especially with the Uber Suggest that I showed, it's a lot of question based. And nowadays too, with SEO and content, everything is so competitive that I don't know if you guys have heard long tail keywords. Basically, it's a keyword search that is multiple keywords instead of like cars. It might be like I'm looking for a red Rolls Royce in Charleston, South Carolina, for example. That might be longer tail, but frequently asked questions, question base is really good for content, because a lot of the times they're asking the questions in Google, and if you can show up with the answer, you've already kind of have that brand impression, you've already kind of delivered the value. And not just Uber Suggest, but here's kind of a pretty cool trick that a lot of people don't know about. Have y'all heard of Quora before? Yeah. It's people go there and it's Q&A. It's Q&A. If you go through and you look in Quora for your topic, for your industry, it's a gold mine. I mean, you can see a whole page and a lot of the times you see the same question answered, or a question that has 37 comments or something like that. If you go to Quora and look at all these different questions people are typing in, a lot of the times you can say, all right, well, there's half my content strategy. Here's the questions that they really want answered. And then if you put together a really good blog post that addresses that, you can go in there in a non-spammy way and say, hey, we wrote this article to kind of help answer these questions for you guys. You can drop the link in there, and then all of a sudden you have all this targeted traffic going to your website as well, which is great. And content, you got to think a little broader too, especially when it comes to your audience. There's different types of content. It's just not all blog posts. Content could be obviously text, but depending on your persona, is it a millennial that is not going to sit there and read a 2,000 word article? Maybe they just want 400 words, just get to the point quick. Even geographic, someone's like, maybe like in Southeast Georgia versus maybe up north. It's like the length of content, the might play a role there. So it's age, locale could be the length of the content. Images, content is images too, so you have memes, you have quote graphics, those may or may not be appropriate for your audience. Other stuff to think about. Infographics, if done right, it can be a good source too. It's still content. And then video, that could be an animated GIF, that could be a minute video, that could be a webinar, just kind of think of different things other than just text-based content is what I'm saying. And also think about, like I said, is what type of content is going to be more appropriate for your audience. And you might have different kinds. You might have persona 1 that is like super analytical, and they're like, all right, give me a 2,000 word case study, give me that white paper. And you might have another persona that could be buying the same exact product or service, but the way they're going about learning it and making their decisions is different. They might not be super analytical. They might be really emotional. Maybe that's the success story or the case study that they want to see, or the testimonial where they'll say, oh, okay, that makes sense for me. So think about that too. And then here's a big one, is this is big for a few reasons. One is to have content that's going to help people through the buyer's journey. It's also giving you more opportunities for conversions. So one common thing that I see a lot, I don't know if anybody came to my presentation last year, but when I first start working with a new business, a lot of the times I'll look at their website, and the first thing I'll notice right off the bat is all they have is a contact us tab on their website. Like that's the only conversion opportunity they have is a phone number and the contact us that has their email or a form or something like that. If that's the case, if you think about people in the buyer's journey, and this could be like research mode, consideration, you know, if you just have a contact us, you're only getting people that are ready right now, which I guess is fine to an extent, because it's like, okay, well, I got, you know, hot leads, but what about all these other people? They're going elsewhere. You could have got them somehow. You could have at least gotten their email address. And also, you're not really providing any value, so your brand isn't having as good of an impression as it could. So one way to do this is to chunk it up. So if you think about each persona, what's the journey that they go through? You know, when they first have that problem or that symptom, what is it that they're looking for? What's kind of like that very top of the funnel, like, you know, I have this problem, but I'm not real sure what the solution is at this point. I'm just kind of researching. You know, what are they typing in then? That's content opportunity. You want to have pages and posts and content supporting that. That's what's kind of bring them in and get your brand impressed on them. And then when you have them there, I'm a big believer in conversion, so and not wasting clicks. So there's a couple strategies you can do there. Is if they come, they consume your free content, but what's kind of the next step? You always want to kind of lead them down the funnel. So what's the next step? Help them with their research. You know, if you kind of know what information that they're looking for, what kind of questions that they're asking, you can create different things like ebooks and checklists and videos, you know, white papers, different things like that they can download and say, you know, here's a free guide of everything you need to know about X topic that you're researching. Great. Name and email. It's better to have a name and email and send them into a, you know, email automation than it's to have them just leave, and if you paid for that click or you wrote all this content to attract them, it'd be lost. Another way is through retargeting. Are you guys familiar with what retargeting is? Where you go to a site, Amazon does it great, you know, next thing you know, you're going around the web, you're seeing banners for that thing you just looked at. So you can think about retargeting too, is people come to your website, they may leave without doing anything. You can retarget them with your ebook, for example.
Is that the same as like the Facebook pixel?
So you can retarget through web and Facebook. So you probably see banners everywhere, and then when you're in your Facebook feed, you might see, you know, an ad for the product you just looked at. So yeah, it definitely goes along there. And then say they're kind of moved past the research stage. They kind of understand.
Can you
Yes.
go back for a second though?
Mhm.
You've got to be very careful with that though, based on your being supportive of your brand.
What do you mean
Because
by
it's one
that?
thing if you're like a Neiman Marcus or a Chewy for dog food or something, but if you're a high-end or a service type brand, do people really want to feel like they're being stalked?
I've seen
Yeah.
ads for coaches and stuff like that,
Yeah.
like from Facebook, like if you onto their website, and I've seen that.
Would you consider hiring them, or would you consider that too
Yep.
creepy? Would you
Well,
consider
I don't
hiring
know,
them?
Yeah, I
I wouldn't
would.
hire them, but I'd go to that next.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah, I'd
sucker
go-
for
yeah.
that retargeting. When it comes to those free webinars, because I'm always trying to learn something,
Mhm.
and they hit me at the right place, and then I see them 7 times, right? Don't you have to have that
Yep.
7 touches? And I'm like, I'll sign up for that free thing, because it's low, it's not a big thing, I'm just giving them my email.
Yeah, you're not selling them.
Subscribe.
You're not selling them
Yeah.
anything at that point. You're just providing value.
Mm.
It also
Okay,
gives
so
you
value, okay.
a good impression of being bigger than you are as well. You know, because you got to think these banners are going on. Like if someone goes on New York Times, they could see a banner for you there, which is like, oh man, these people got the budget for that. Like they don't realize that, you know, you're not really buying banner space there. It's just retargeting. And another thing too is if you set it up to pay for clicks instead of impressions, that's free branding. You know, so people are seeing your banners all over the place, whether they're clicking on them or not, they're seeing your brand. So it's that, you know, the 7 times. And say, so they download an ebook or whatever, so now you've got their name and email. That could trigger an email automation, which is great. You could have retargeting graphics, you know, following them around, which is great. And then the next step, you know, maybe that's when you know they're kind of considering. It's, say if it's a software and you know you have 3 big competitors that you're always compared to. Why not create a comparison guide, putting like your software, your features and everything, you know, check marks, we do this, they do that, here's a price. obviously you'd want to steer it towards, yours a little bit to show as a clear winner, but a comparison guide, because if they're researching, they understand what's going on, they're going here, they want to compare, great, you got a guide for them. Maybe you ask for a little more information, you have their name and email, maybe you ask for their website, or their phone number, for example, so you can follow up with them. That's where, she said the webinars, that's a good tactic too. A lot of the times, webinars, you go there to learn something, but it's really one big sales pitch, which is a little frustrating, but yes.
So 2 things, Zach. So this is great. My first question is, how does this look in real life? Are you suggesting that we only list the items that are part of the awareness stage on our website, and then the others get revealed based on the interaction?
I would do a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah, so for example, you can have content, web pages, different things like that for each step. So for example, you could say like resources, here's free white papers and guides.
And
You
is
could have
that
something
a
else.
homepage? Is that a separate tab?
I would have a separate tab. I
Okay.
mean, you can have navigation that goes there.
Okay.
But I do a combination of both. So if someone gets to your website, they want to do a demo, let them do a demo. If they want to skip right past there, maybe they stumbled upon your site along the way and they're already kind of through half the buyer's journey already, have it there. But then at the same time, if you get somebody here and they're not quite ready, then you can kind of reveal through landing pages and different things like that some of these other steps. So I do a little bit of both.
And the second question is, on your website, so I just subscribed to your newsletter. You only gave me a choice to subscribe daily, which normally I don't like to do, but I like your content, so I did it. Is there a reason why you only allow people to subscribe to daily emails?
That was we're actually in a software transition right now, going
Okay.
off of HubSpot to another provider. So I think that was maybe more of something with that, and you have to check.
So
into that.
what would you do in the next provider?
And so we don't do daily newsletters. We don't have time for that.
I was gonna say, content machine.
That's
Right.
good.
In theory, I'd love to do it, but yeah, you're not going to go daily.
So once you move over, you might maybe give a weekly option or a monthly option,
I
possibly?
mean, yeah, in all honesty, we've done like one newsletter in the past 2 years. So.
Oh, dude, you're killing me. Okay.
I mean, a lot of times it's just repurposing block content. So
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I know I want to be mindful of y'all's time, so I'm just try to skip through a little bit. Yes.
Well, so you mentioned HubSpot, expensive, right, but kind of a whole solution. And
Yep.
we have like Infusionsoft and lead pages and, ads, and it's all disjointed.
Yeah.
So when you work with someone, do you recommend like a more holistic automation, or do you kind of, do you start with the website after you do the personas? How does it look like working with clients for kind of getting all these pieces? Because it's like a giant neural network, and like, all that tagging, and then you've got millions of people tagged.
Yeah.
You don't even know how to access them because Confusionsoft is.
Confusionsoft, I know. I have one
I like
client
that.
on it, and
It is.
I can't stand it. I know it, but
I
I
know.
don't prefer it at all. Yeah, and it's so
But
many
it's
people
so
use
hard
it.
to move, like.
Switch to active campaign.
That's
Yes,
who we're
right.
moving towards.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're
really?
getting out of
I
HubSpot
haven't
I
even
now.
love
heard
it.
of that.
It's really good.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice, okay, good to learn that.
Yeah, we've used it, and that was another thing for us, like HubSpot, for big enterprise clients with deep budgets, it's great.
It's so expensive.
For the 90% other people that we work with, it's just out of reach for them. And so we've actually been using ActiveCampaign for a while with clients. And then we finally reached a decision of, all right, we're tired of paying for HubSpot ourselves. If we get the right client, we can obviously put them on it and build things out for them. I love the software. It's just, it comes with a price. ActiveCampaign, that doesn't do all the things, but it has a lot of integrations, and it's very robust. I would, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, okay.
Infusionsoft is great. It does all the things. It's just overly complex, in my opinion. I don't understand why it's like that. It could be so much simpler. So how do you take some of this information and do it for AdWords and SEO? It's, like I said, it's easy to kind of jump into, well, let me just fire up an AdWords campaign. Let me just research all the keywords and, have some ads. And same with SEO, but if you kind of think about it, going back to the buying process, is like, what are my keyword sets for the awareness stage? What are subsections of that? You know, for the consideration stage, what are subsections of that? Same with the decision stage. And then think about where you're pointing them to. A lot of the times people with AdWords campaigns that we'll go in and start working with a new client, they're like, yeah, we're already running AdWords, it's not working that great. And then I'll look at their campaign and they're spending $5,000 sending it to the homepage for like all the keywords. That right there is like bad segmentation, because if they're doing a keyword search about this, like that information not even be on the homepage, you know. So it's like you're dumping them there, and it's like, all right, good luck, you know, hope you find the right page you're looking for. So if you kind of segment things out by persona, by buyer stage, segments within that, and you already have these pages mapped out on your site, then you'll kind of know the appropriate pages to send them with your AdWords campaigns. And you know, kind of going back to the same thing. So what are they looking for? What keywords are they typing in? You know, a good example with the question you asked is, what's the language that they use? I've seen a lot of times where people will say, we have this new thing that it's not, you know, it's brand new, it's not even out yet. Well, that's great. That means that no one's searching for that. But is there something related? Like at the end of the day, your new thing still solves some kind of problem that they're probably searching for. So instead of coining your own terms that may not take, you know, people may not even be searching that for years and years until your product takes off. Why not use something that they're already searching for, bring them in, and then kind of show them how it's different, similar, whatever. So always be thinking about your personas, what they're typing in, what they're searching for, what they need help with.
What is SEO again?
Search engine optimization. So yeah, when you're in Google,
That's SEO.
yeah. So like if you do a Google search, you'll have those few links up top. That's your ads. Yeah, and then below that, that's the organic rankings.
Yeah, I didn't know SEM. I knew SEO, but I didn't realize search engine
Oh,
marketing.
SEM. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Search engine marketing.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
like your
The marketing to
AdWords
get
and
the organic
paid
SEO.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Facebook ads. Man, if you put together persona research, your targeting for Facebook ads is like nearly done. It's insane. It's really beneficial here. So, how many of you all have run Facebook ads or been into their interface? Yeah, so you've kind of seen what's available. I mean, they're sitting on, when you're talking about creepy, like the amount of data they're sitting on is insane. Like, Big Brother, very much so. I mean, it's scary, but at the same time, you're like, oh man, like this is a marketer's dream, you know?
Is there a story like a guy said, I can target you individually?
I've seen
based
people
on
get
your-
jobs
and
like
then
that. Yeah.
They literally target one person. on
Yeah, I've seen
Facebook
people
with this stuff.
roommate pranks, you know, get jobs that way and stuff. I've seen a lot of cool stories, but you know, demographics, like you have different personas. If one is, like one example, one client that we started working with a few years ago, their target audience was kind of broad, right? It was like, whoa, we have clients that some are 25 and some are 65. It's like, wow, okay. So that's pretty broad. So we kind of chunked them up into different personas. Running Facebook ads, when we took that information and dumped it into Facebook, we then learned by building data that we actually had a sub-persona of one. So for example, we learned that we had one that was like 45, I can't remember the age, but by running ads, we learned that we had this very specific sweet spot of males the age 45 to 54. Before we were a little more broad, you know, it was like male and female, maybe it was like age 40 to 64 or something like that. And just looking at the ad data, like we were crushing it within this very small segment. And when we decided to like only target that one, you know, males age 45 to 54 with the other information here that we had, like we literally cut our cost per lead in half, and we were able to get almost twice the amount of leads with the same exact budget. So whatever you put together for your segments, that's your Facebook ad campaign. If you have 4 different buyer personas, then you probably need to have 4 different audiences for your Facebook ads. That could be 4 different types of graphics, 4 different types of messages, different things like that. So interests, behaviors, I would test using both. I mean, I've seen times where we'll only use behavior data, or we'll only use interest data, or we'll use a little bit of both. Even down to the time of day, you know, if you're doing professionals, like are they even on Facebook during Monday through Friday, 8 to 5? Maybe, maybe not. Some of the campaigns we only run at night and weekends on purpose, you know, because that's when all the conversions, like you can get clicks during the day, but if they're sitting at work, the chances of them like filling out a form and going through all that are a little less likely. So you could focus your budget. Same thing, type of content, you know, is your ad gonna be like a couple sentences? Is it gonna be long form content? Is it images? Is it a video ad? Different things like that. And I don't know if you guys have messed with this, it's the Facebook audiences, but basically you put in all your persona information and it'll tell you, you know, kind of how big your audience is, and just give you a lot of really cool data. So very big brother, but very useful from a marketing standpoint. And same thing, you know, just you're creating these multiple personas for a reason. Use them, you know, in your ads. You make everything different, so you're not having one blanket message going to all the people. And social media. So there's really no need to say, okay, well, there's, you know, 10 big social networks, we need to be on all 10. Well, you may not. You know, what if your target audience is only on 1 or 2? You know, what if you have 0 females for your customers? Like, do you want to be on Pinterest? Or what if, you know, on the flip side, what if you have a female audience? Do you really want to spend all your time on Twitter when they're on Pinterest all day? You know, so just kind of think about stuff like that. And then knowing too, how do they talk? How do they like to be spoken to? You know, is there a certain tone that you would take for one persona versus another? The type of content that you use. So basically, it's taking that information and rolling it over to your social media as well. You can do searches. I mean, there's data and charts that will tell you the demographics and kind of persona information for each network. So you can say like, okay, LinkedIn, I remember the average income is super high. It's generally people higher up, you know, C-suites that are really active on there. So if that's your market, then spend more time on LinkedIn instead of Pinterest. If you have a female market, if you have like, you know, some kind of cooking blog or something like that, then maybe LinkedIn is not going to be for you, but Pinterest would. Facebook, most of the planet's on Facebook, so that's usually a pretty good, you know, blanket. But just kind of think about that, and then think about the messaging too. You know, if you're marketing to certain people, like I said, memes might work good, quote graphics might work good, long form content might work good, you know, infographics. Just think about when you're doing your content strategy, how can that roll over to social? How can that roll over to ads? The type of content, the tone that you use, even the time of day that you do it, the topics, just be conscious of all that. So that's why you do the persona research first. You can take that information and say, okay, we need 2 of these, you know, instead of all of them. And plus, at the end of the day, like, you're not going to maintain 10 networks anyway. You know, nobody has time for that.
So for branding, I steer most of my clients to LinkedIn and Twitter, potentially Facebook if they have time to manage it. If it's visual, towards Instagram, possibly Pinterest. My question has to do with Google+. Does participating in that affect SEO or SEM?
Yeah, I mean,
That's the only
That's
reason
what
we're
I
there.
thought.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Google will say
There's
no,
nobody else.
but I've seen lots
Yeah.
of data that says yes.
Okay.
And that's another thing, is like, you say being active and being on there. I mean, honestly, from an SEO standpoint, I would create branded profiles on all the networks, just so you have those links and you go ahead and secure your brand name on all the networks. You don't have to keep them updated. You know, if your audience isn't on Pinterest, then maybe create a quick board and call it a day. Spend all your time on Facebook, or, you know, whatever makes sense. But I would secure a brand name. There's services that'll do that, get your brand name on all of them. It's just good to secure the brand and to get links, but you can choose which ones you want to be active on.
How much success have you had with aggregators?
It depends. So from a time-saving standpoint, I like it a lot. If you want to actually, technically, I believe it's better to go into each one individually. But it just kind of, it's a judgment call. You know, are you trying to save time, or you're trying to, it's really a timing thing.
Are the back-end analytics helpful too, though?
That is, yeah. So we actually are switching. We were using Hootsuite for a while, and we just fired up with Sprout Social. I think that's what they're called.
Yep.
And yeah, I like the reporting a lot better and some of the tools that they have.
Just a side note, I actually just went to a kind of a workshop that talked about how Facebook is really kind of slapping you in the hand if you use an aggregator.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to you know, how they already slap you for organic if you're not paying, if you're not spending money, but they'll give you even less views and shows. So
Yep.
the rest of them for Twitter, it's great and it's perfect, but I would personally recommend staying away from it if you can on Facebook, because you can personally go in there and schedule it for so far out, because Facebook kind of doesn't, they want you to spend money and not use anybody else but them.
That's the thing with Facebook I've noticed is even if you have this massively huge audience, like it's a pay-to-play network, really. You know, if you want to get eyeballs, you're gonna have to pay for it.
It's
But
a 1% reach.
it's it's insane. But on the flip side, you know, their targeting is awesome, and really when you compare the cost of Facebook ads to other channels, like it's pretty cost effective in my opinion. Like if you compare the cost of what you spend in Facebook ads versus LinkedIn ads, for example, like it's, you know, LinkedIn cost per click is, you
There's a
know,
lot of
5 times
options for
higher.
how you pay based on the type, like.
Exactly.
We even paid once based on ticket sales. We paid a higher rate, but we
Yeah.
actually knew that we would get the return of the ticket sale.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the demographic research for all of these? Is it just go on Google and find it, or is there a place
Yeah.
that has it all? Or-
Yeah, you can just Google like, you know, try different things, demographics for social media 2017, different things like that. There's a lot of them out there, so just start there. And so kind of tying it all together, you know, it's basically, it's creating your target audiences. It's really at the end of the day, what makes them tick? How can you help them? What's going to resonate? You know, what are their goals, challenges, pain points? How does your product or service fit into those goals, challenges, pain points? How do you help? And then taking that information and strategically putting it across all network with very tight segments so that it resonates and it's relevant for them. You know, for example, like back in the day with SEO, people would create these, you know, crappy content pages to bring people to the site. But then people would get to the site and it wouldn't even be relevant to what their search was. So it's good for you as a marketer, it's good for you as a business. It's great for sales because a lot of the times if you do your marketing right, and then by the time they get to sales, half of the work is already done. And it's good for the end user because they're getting value, they're getting, you know, messages that's appropriate to them, and it's just a win-win. I just see a lot of times where people jump right into firing up an AdWords campaign, or they start blogging, you know, with no real strategy, or they'll, you know, ping out, aggregate to all the social networks and different things like that. It's really kind of taking a step back before you get in the weeds of all these different options, and just going back to basics, you know, one-on-one, who are you targeting, what makes them tick, how can I resonate with them? And that's all.
Time for a couple of questions?
I had one to piggyback on this young lady's question right here. I used to consult small businesses building CRMs, basically with a Salesforce partner, and we did all kinds of bolt-on applications like Pardot, Exact Target, that sort of thing. In my experience, it's really easy for business leaders to conceptually understand this sort of customer journey, and it does break down in the segmentation of data. So the marketing department's on a marketing platform, they're doing their stuff, and then the data doesn't talk to anything that sales, particularly in the B2B space. Like the B2C space, it kind of is what it is. You're driving people to a marketplace and they buy or they don't. In your experience, can you talk about some of the back-end tool sets that you've seen, like ecosystems of tools that have really worked? Because that to me is, when in my experience, it's worked best when there's a single system of record that the entire business is working on that's bubbling in the back end, that all this data is tying back into. And if you don't have that, you're kind of playing JV basketball at that point, because marketing's getting all this great analytics.
Yeah.
But then you still have your salespeople prospecting in the old-fashioned way, and the data's not talking to one another. Can you describe a scenario where you've seen that data, all this stuff on the front end of the spear actually getting to the back end and it working in different silos?
Yep. So there's a few options there. Obviously, like a HubSpot, you get all in one, but honestly, they have a few limitations as well. And I've seen disjointed, but the main thing, I guess, for me is, especially if you have a sales team, especially in B2B, is the CRM needs to have that marketing data. So tools like HubSpot, ActiveCampaign will give you the ability to add some kind of web script to the website, so you can see, okay, well, they came in from this source, they looked at these pages, they came back a certain amount of times, and that's actionable data not only from a salesperson, but you can automate some of that too. So for example, like I have this lead, I've called this guy like 10 times, I can't ever catch him. Well, what if you got a text message saying, prospect is on your site right now, like wouldn't you stop what you were doing and just call him, you know, if you've been having a hard time reaching him, and then knowing like when you call him, what's he most interested in. If you have 100 pages on your website, but he keeps going back to this one page, you know, this one service, and you kind of know exactly kind of how to steer the conversation. And the other part of your question is like having things disjointed and having the information spread across. The main thing for me is reporting, you know, so there's ways to tie it together, and sometimes there's not, you know, sometimes it's trickier. It's having those dashboards for everyone, for marketers, for sales, for C-suite. A lot of the times you can do it in Google Analytics. There's separate dashboard companies that will integrate with a lot of things that will plug in all the data. But the main thing is having things tracked. For one, a lot of people just don't track stuff. And two is having dashboards for each type of person in your company that has all the KPIs in one spot. And so I guess when you're looking at building an infrastructure or restructuring something that's there, always kind of start with the end in mind of like, how can we look at all the data in one spot without having to, because man, I'll tell you, I've been on the receiving end of like, we have all these different things, we want to report, we want to have this one kick-ass report that has all the things. I mean, honestly, those can take hours to put together, and it's such a waste of time to do, in my opinion. That's hours that someone could be doing other things, so it's better to start up front and figure out how can we automate reporting, get into one dashboard without some poor soul, you know, sitting there for 2 hours a week just pulling reports that some people may or may not even read half the time. So always start there, you know, is how can you make everything talk, or at least have everything pipe into one spot.
All right, thanks, Zach. Zach will be here, so if anybody wants to quickly follow up, probably that'd be fine. So appreciate all you coming out today. I would, you know, I think for those of you guys who've been here before, you know that basically we actively like, you know, our members to and our audience tell us what topics they'd like to hear about. So very simply, you can just go to Fridays@charlestondigitalboard.com and you know, come let us know what you guys would like. So if you'd like more of this, you know, yes, you know, or something that's kind of tangential to this. Over the next 3 months, we're going to take 2 companies and just do kind of an innovation spotlight, so some of the challenges that they faced kind of along the way. And quite honestly, rather than talking about companies that are kind of bogged down with their challenges, we want to basically focus on companies that have successfully managed the challenges. So not, these are companies that are kind of on their way to being successful. One that comes to mind is Ceteris, who just recently went out and raised another $6.5 million. We're also going to do one on, you're seeing the proliferation of Alexa, Google, Siri, now you know the assistants that are kind of coming up. You know, we've got an engineer in the building basically who understands how that all works. So I think it'd be really kind of cool, you know, this misnomer that they're constantly grabbing information and conversation in the house, which is absolute bunk. But you know, so I think that would be kind of, you know, fun to also hear from. And then there's a company in town that does stuff at the highest levels called Black Lantern Security. So we're going to do one on just cybersecurity and things that you need to, as an owner of the company, things that you need to be aware of. So that's kind of what the next 3 months looks like. You know, again, trying to keep it very relevant. You know, not these esoteric topics that nobody gives a crap about. You know, and if we ever get there, please let us know. So I appreciate all of you guys coming out, and I suddenly appreciate. You know, I was sitting back basically, and here's something that kind of comes to. It can be kind of overwhelming. I'm already thinking, oh, I got to go back and look at Zach's video. I really would like to get to a situation where we're doing like, you know, half day or day long workshops just on this topic, where you're actively doing some things that Zach's talking about. And I'll talk to him a little further about maybe pulling in a couple of folks. So it's kind of a hands-on demo, and it might just be that it's a morning with lunch and you're on your way, because, you know, spending all day might be too much. So let me consult with him, and that's kind of more important. So nobody walking away can come feeling overwhelmed. How do you use the tools? And he uses them all day, so he can show you an instance of what he did with a client. You know, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, Ernest, I would definitely think about doing it like maybe 2 90-minute or 2-hour workshops with some spacing.
yeah,
So people can do some work in between, because that could really make it sticky for people
yeah,
and be really brain friendly.
yeah.
Yeah, and I even say, like, to minimum 2 hours, 3 hours. I like to follow up, and I can just tell you from my readers of the Charleston Regional Business Journal, if you did a workshop on building the personas like we talked about, it would sell out. You know, and I'd probably do an article about it because it's so necessary.
Yeah,
We
no,
don't pay you for your time.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. So thank you all for coming out, and, note it, so, we have the information if you registered, so basically, and when we talk about personas, we actually keep all the Fridays in the Fridays, we don't just spend everybody saying, hey, in terms of topics that are upcoming and that kind of thing, and we're trying to do a better job, just kind of letting you know what's coming, and we like that kind of feedback, it's like this was totally relevant. The audience has changed, the reason I asked for introductions, something I haven't done in about a year and a half, is because there's so many new faces over here, it's just fantastic to see on this very relevant topic. And actually, as it turns out, when Zach did it about a year and a half ago, it was the exact same thing, it was just a totally different audience, and it was very well received. So I'll get some advice and push it back out to you guys, but thank you all for coming out today.